than that which motivated the lawmaker to lay down the minimum 15-year sentence. However, on further count of the unlawful possession of the semi-automatic firearm, the appeal against the minimum sentence imposed was upheld and replaced with a sentence of 7 years imprisonment. In this regard, the court held that the state accepted the appellant's version to the effect that he fortuitously came across the firearm in a rubbish dump and was apprehended the same day. The appellant's decision to take the firearm into his possession could be regarded as having been made on the spur of the moment. Spur of the moment. Furthermore, it found that the appellant did not have the firearm in his possession for a very long time before he was apprehended. The court held that the circumstances of the crime were such as to make a sentence of 15-year imprisonment disproportionate. In other words, he got 8 years. Also had the firearm in a very short period, semi-automatic firearm, didn't use it in any offense, and so on.
And the other count?
The other count was, one was upheld, one was set aside.
So were there two firearms? I'm just trying to understand
Yes.
the context of the...
There were two firearms. The one he was sentenced to 15 years. The one of the firearms were reduced, the one that he actually found in the rubbish dump. So it was a spur of the moment decision by him. He hadn't had it for a long period of time. Still, he got an 8 years direct imprisonment. This case, the accused also did not have the firearm for a long period of time. It's very brief. It doesn't change the fact that he was still sentenced to a direct imprisonment. What do you have to say about that?
Your Worship, what I hear is, again, different circumstances, although it was also not for a long period of time. It was, I wouldn't know why the reason is why it was picked up in the spur of the moment time, but I also hear that it was not the only firearm that was possessed illegally, which makes it different, and the use. I'm not sure whether the other firearm was used, but in combination, it is always better to look at it in the circumstances in total. But I hear what was said. But for me, the circumstances, again, are different. I'm not sure whether it was an illegal firearm, whether it was seized to the stage, what happened to it, which may also make it different.
Did you come across any case where, like such as this, in the firearm-related case, possession of firearm, where an accused was not sentenced to direct imprisonment, and actually he got given a fine and to pay to NGOs and so on and so on?
As I said, I haven't come across, Your Worship, to any case where a charge was laid and the firearm was used for celebratory shots.
Have you come across a case where an accused was convicted of being in possession of a firearm, whether it's for celebratory purposes, whether it's just social, whether whatever reason? Have you ever come across the case where an accused was not sentenced to direct imprisonment for being in possession of a firearm, whether it's just for a minute, for 10 minutes, for 20 minutes?
Your Worship, I have not, because most of the cases that I've seen were also not only the firearm possession case, but most of them relate, as in the context of other crimes that were committed with a firearm. So the possession forms part of that, and then a sentence of imprisonment is also imposed for that. I haven't come across a case where it was purely just for the possession of a firearm.
Thank you for that submission. But in this case, other crimes were committed, shots were fired, reckless endangerment, you saw the different charges, failed to take precautions and so on. So isn't that basically what you are saying?
So, Your Worship, if I refer to other crimes committed, I refer to, and some of the cases they may have taken it on the spur of the moment, but it is usually taken for the purpose of committing other crimes. And when I commit other crimes, it's violent crimes like murder, robbery, and in that context, you get the sentences being imposed. But I couldn't find a case where it was done and imposed outside of that context.
So the point I'm trying to make, how would that be fair to these accused that I've referred? I don't want to go through all the cases. I just want to go to those who are closely related to the accused. How would this be fair to the other accused who have been these sentences being imposed? But in this particular instance, because of the accused standing, he must now get the recommendation that he pays to NGOs and so forth.
Your Worship, the recommendation is not because of the accused standing. The recommendation is because of the very particular case that is different, where there were no other crimes committed in the sense of violent crimes. There is indications I've mentioned it in my report where part of the motivation to bring in minimum sentences for firearm-related things as well is because of the concerns with regards to the violent crimes committed with firearms obtained illegally. This is different from those matters.
How?
There was no intent to obtain the firearm illegally, obtain it from, and if I say obtain illegally, Your Worship, the accused didn't go out to get a firearm that is either stolen or licensed or unlicensed, keep it with the intent to go and commit murder or robbery or any other crime, as is in many of those cases that are stated. It's different in that context.
His evidence was to the effect that this was a pre-planned idea that this will be happening at the stadium.
The planning was at the stadium. The planning was not to commit an offence with the firearm. There was negligence in not considering the impact of that and the possible impact of those people, whether they're from him or his people. But it wasn't done with the intent to keep it and to go and commit the violent crimes which inspired the extension of the minimum sentences regime to automatic and semi-automatic firearms.
I disagree with you, Ms. Thompson, with that sentiment, because he did commit other offences. Like I've pointed out to you, he's been charged for those and he's been convicted of that.
I do not deny it, Your Worship. I have made reference to violent crimes in the context of the minimum sentences regime.
I want to go to your report on page 33. I'm going to go to paragraph 87 on your report, where you say, although not part of the sentence, any form of pain or discomfort an offender suffers as a result of committing a crime can be seen as punishment and moral retribution. The following is noted: the lapse of more than 7 years between the commission of the offense, the conviction, and all that. You are referring now to. I just want to point out to you, those gentlemen, the cases that I referred to you, they have committed the crime and they are doing, or they did do the time. So now you're saying because the trial was delayed, and do you know the causes of that delay in the 7-year period?
I do not know all the causes of the delay, no, Your Worship.
Let me tell you, the accused wasn't immediately charged after the commission of the offense. There was an investigation that took place for a long period of time. The accused was sent with a summons. I'm not sure when was his first appearance. if I speak under correction, I think it's in 2020. I just need to have a look at the charge sheet for 2021. But during those periods, it was COVID, so the cases couldn't really proceed. It only started after COVID eased a bit up, and the trial have been running ever since. The reasons for the delay is that we are not always all available at the time, especially counsel is busy, very busy. So how did that factor into the fact that you are saying it's a 7-year delay, whereas it's not really a 7-year delay, as I've just explained to you?
Did you just see how I worded it? I indicated that it was a 7-year period from the commitment of the offence to the conviction, including all those things with the thing. But irrespective of the reasons, the reasons why it was a delay, it doesn't mean there's not an effect on a person, and that is what I was highlighting, that lengthy cases or cases that go over a period of time have an impact on a person, which is just a consideration.
You also referred to the humiliation suffered in public and by the fact that he actually appeared before court and so on.
He was convicted by the court and the humiliation comes from that
I
perspective.
can't hear you, sorry.
Apologies, Your Worship. The conviction, the humiliation comes from the conviction. He was convicted of a crime, and a person in his position where he also would want to encourage people not to commit crime, young people. It impacts his credibility to do so.